Shayla. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Shayla. Thanks for joining. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. There's a couple more folks in the waiting room, so we'll let them in and make sure that they get all settled in, and then we'll get started. We'll also be recording this, as you can tell, and we'll be posting the recording online. So for those of you who want to revisit this conversation, you'll get to. Those who are new and joining us now, please in the chat, drop your name, your org, your title, and maybe where you're based. My name is Hima Patel. I'm the Director of US Programs here at GHC, and I am based in Maryland, right outside of DC. Hi, Kristen. Hope that's how I say your name. You know what? Let's go ahead and get started. I hope some folks will join in a bit as well. Thank you all for dropping your names and titles in the chat. I'm excited to meet you all. Let me start with a bit of an intro of myself and our org. My name is Hima Patel. I'm the Director of US Programs, where I lead the development and implementation of our US Fellowship. I'm based in Maryland, right outside of DC, as I mentioned, and I'm thrilled to just have so many of you here at this info session. I want to throw it over to Erin, my colleague, to introduce herself before I move into our conversation.
Thanks, Hima. It's so nice to meet all of you. My name is Erin Gilbert. I'm a grants manager with Global Health Corps. I'm going to be helping with slides and some tech support. So feel free to reach out to me or pop any issues or questions in the chat. And I'm based in Atlanta, but I do a lot of digital nomading, if anybody's familiar with that. And yeah, I'm excited for the session.
Thanks, Erin. Yes, our tech guru for the day. And I also want to throw it over to Wanji for a quick intro. We'll get into a deeper intro in a bit, but Wanji, do you want to say hi?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Wanji. I am a Global Health US Fellow alumna, so definitely excited to be here, and I am based in Dallas, Texas.
Well, thank you all. There is an active chat, so please drop any questions as you have them in the chat. We will get to them at the end. We're going to have space for a Q&A. So yeah, we'll pull questions from there throughout. So don't worry if we don't answer it right away in our slides. We will get to it. So without further ado, let me get started. Erin, if I could get to the next slide. Thank you. So just a little bit more about Global Health Corps. We at GHC, we envision a world where every person lives a healthy, dignified life. Our team and community is united by the belief that health is a human right. And given that, our mission is to mobilize a diverse community of leaders to build that movement for health equity around the world. We know that leadership's the greatest lever for change in global health, and global health also includes US public health. We invest in our fellows, who are early career professionals who are committed to building equitable health systems. We currently have 2 active fellowship programs, the US Leadership Accelerator and the newly redesigned Africa Leadership Accelerator. Today, I'm going to be focusing on the US Leadership Accelerator. So that's what we'll be talking about today. If I could get the next slide. Yeah, thanks, Erin. So why did we design our fellowship? In the US, we recognize that workers were burnt out from the pandemic. Many current professionals in the public health space were nearing retirement age, so there's a projected exodus of leaders during the next 5 years. And recent studies have also shown that 44% of US public health workers are considering leaving their job due to burnout. Meanwhile, the sector's chronically understaffed and struggling to provide for basic health services. And so these deficiencies, we also recognized, disproportionately impacted people who are Black, Indigenous, and others who identify as part of the global majority, leading to staggering health inequities. In addition, these are the same folks who are chronically underrepresented at the top of organizations in senior leadership roles or in C-suite positions. So we believe here at GHC, and we've shown through our fellowship models, that investing in leadership and management skills can address many of the challenges we see. So we saw the challenges and we redesigned our fellowship to address them. We believe and have shown that this opportunity will strengthen fellows' leadership and management skills, expand their network, allow them to connect with the wider GHC community and with one another who work in public health all across the US and the world, improve fellows' understanding of systems change, as well as increase their impact. We want to invest in emerging leaders who want to advance their public health careers in that pursuit of global health equity. So many of you may know us for our Africa Fellowship. In 2023, we launched the US Leadership Accelerator Fellowship. And this was to align with our mission, the problems and challenges that we currently saw in the US space, and recognizing that quite a bit had changed in the public health landscape in the wake of COVID-19. We've already served 60 fellows across 22 states in the US since program launch, including Wanji, who's here with us today. We tailored the fellowship for US public health leaders. This fellowship is for emerging leaders ages 21 to 30 who are already working in non-clinical public health roles. It's designed to complement full-time jobs and allows fellows to continue to make an impact in their communities. At GHC, we believe that leadership is cultivated. This is something that you can learn. This is something that you can flex and practice and get better at. This program invests in young professionals who are passionate about issues ranging from maternal and child health to environmental justice and everything in between and beyond. Fellows receive comprehensive leadership training, executive coaching, and opportunities to connect with a powerful network of peers and mentors, all to advance their careers and their work in health equity. The U.S. Fellowship equips diverse, high-potential leaders with the tools to address these critical challenges that we keep seeing time and again in our public health system, and the skills needed to lead the charge. We're excited to be launching our third cohort of the U.S. Leadership Accelerator Fellowship, and that's what we're here for, and to talk you through a bit more about our fellowship, as well as how to apply or nominate folks. So our impact, our program has a lot of really great impact. Fellows and organizations alike are able to find a lot of value from our fellowship program. 95% of our partner organizations say that fellows have positively contributed to their organizations. 88% of our fellows remain in the global or public health field, with alumni twice as likely to stay in the field compared to other young professionals. And 80% of alumni attribute their achievements to their time in the fellowship, who also agree that it improved and amplified their work. We're not done there. There's a ton more impact that our program gets to have. Our fellows also gain practical skills that they can use in their workplace, such as our leadership storytelling series. This has inspired and propelled about 76% of our alumni to have spoken or written publicly in the past year. Our fellows and alumni are also highly accomplished. One of our current fellows won a Promising Young Professional Award at the American Public Health Association conference, and our alumni continue to be standouts in the field globally. 69% of our alumni also hold mid to senior level decision-making roles. So not only do our alumni continue to excel, they're also a source of connection and networking for our current fellows. So, probably why you're here, let me tell you a bit more about the USLA Fellowship. It's a 9-month fellowship program, and through these 9 months, all fellows will have monthly virtual workshops that are designed around the pillars of authentic, collective, and systems leadership. There's also small group learning, we call these pod sessions, that allow fellows to connect with their peers within the larger cohort. There's a 360 assessment. This is a tried and true system that allows fellows to get a sense of who they are and how they perceive themselves to be in the workplace, bringing in feedback from their peers, their colleagues, their bosses, bosses. And that's paired with executive coaching. So fellows get access to their own private executive coach who they get to meet with throughout the year and continue to develop one-on-one leadership skills that they want to focus on. There's also 2 in-person retreats, one in the fall and one in the spring. The spring retreat is the closeout for the fellowship year, and it's always exciting to have these in-person moments for fellows to come together and meet. We also have independent learning through reading, writing, and reflection, and a lot of networking and collaboration opportunities with Africa Fellows and our parallel Africa Leadership Accelerator program. All participants receive coaching and support throughout the fellowship year and beyond from GHC staff like myself. There is no cost to participate for fellows or organizations. This includes travel to and from the retreats, lodging, meals, all of that. We also partner with supervisors of fellows, providing information and resources, as well as opportunities for feedback. And at the completion of the fellowship, fellows are integrated into GHC's lifelong global network, which includes over 1,200 alumni spanning 40+ countries, and the opportunity to continue to learn and develop. We always say, once a fellow, always a fellow. You don't get rid of us all that easy after the fellowship year. It requires about a 6 to 8 hour monthly commitment. And I do want to note that the Virtual Leadership Academy workshops overlap with 9 to 5 working hours. And there's also some commitment to connect with your peers and to do some self-learning outside of working hours as well. So we encourage you to also visit our website. There's a ton of information there. We'll share it at the end to learn more about the program and have some common FAQs as well answered there if we don't get to them all today. And the question that we most often get, who can apply? If you're interested in applying or nominating someone to apply, I want to make sure you understand our eligibility requirements. To be considered, you must be passionate about public health and social justice in the US space, be ready to commit to a year of personal and professional growth, be an emerging leader in public health that's early in your career, be 21 to 30 years old by September 1st, 2025, live and be authorized to work in the US full-time, work full-time in a US public health role in a non-clinical capacity, and have worked in their current role for at least 6 months. Our fellowship is not something that we recommend folks do at the start of a new job. So that's why we have that 6-month requirement. It allows people to be kind of a bit more settled into their organization when they join us. This year, we're proud of our really highly diverse cohort. There's majority women, majority people of color, and represents 14 states and DC. And they all work across sectors in public health. They're all such interesting, smart, and collaborative folks who we're thrilled to have in our fellowship. And I could say the same of our first cohort, who was similarly majority women, majority people of color, and represented 17 states in Washington, DC. This year, we also have a focus on a couple of priority areas. These are areas we're focusing on building deeper partnerships in and recognize that there's a pressing public health need. If you are from one of these areas or know someone from these areas who meets our eligibility criteria, strongly encourage you to apply or nominate. We're focusing this year for cohort 3 in Dallas, Texas, Newark, New Jersey, and New York City, New York. And that's a picture actually from our past fall retreat. You can see our fellows as well as some of our staff. Cohort 2 is just a fun bunch, so good to see them there. And sharing some key dates, write these down. We'll also share this recording and it'll also be on our website. Rolling applications are going to open soon. They'll open next week. This is our application. It is open for folks to start to apply. The official application open is March 3rd, 2025. The priority deadline for best consideration is March 31st, 2025. And the application deadline is April 14th, 2025. And a bit more on the timeline for cohort 3. Cohort 3 will launch in September of 2025, and it'll conclude with our spring retreat in May 2026. Tentatively, our in-person retreats for cohort 3 will be in either October or November of 2025, and then in May 2026. So thank you all so much for being here. Please continue to drop your questions in the chat or the Q&A feature. We'll get to them in a bit. Before we get to them, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the application process. So first things first, visit our website. You'll find the application there as well as the application preview, which I'll talk through in a minute. Please complete the online application. The deadline again is April 14th, 2025. Your supervisor must also complete a reference. The deadline for that is April 14th, 2025. This is a short questionnaire, no need for them to write a cover letter. We find that it usually takes supervisors between 10 to 15 minutes max to complete the supervisor reference. And again, that is due April 14th for your application to be considered complete. And if you're selected, you'll attend a virtual interview. And then if you're selected from there, you'll receive your offer in May 2025 to join the GHC movement and be part of our third cohort of the US Leadership Accelerator. We will review all applications that are submitted by the priority deadline, so that priority deadline of March 31st, including rolling applications that opens next week. Any application that's received after the priority deadline of March 31st will be reviewed on a rolling basis. So we encourage you to start your application as soon as the application opens, or nominate folks that you think are interested to apply as soon as possible. So start this month. You can always save your progress and you don't have to submit right away. It's also important to note that to have a complete application, again, you need to have that supervisor reference and submitted. And if references are not submitted on time, unfortunately, we will not consider those applications to be complete. So you're probably curious, what is the application like? There are a number of multiple choice and short answer, select all, apply type questions that help us get to know you as a candidate, where you work, and the type of work you get to do. We also want to get to know you a bit deeper than that and understand your motivations for being in the US public health space. And so we have 3 essay prompts and a video prompt that we ask of our applicants. The 3 essay prompts are short, 250 words max. The first is a professional biography. It's an overview of your professional achievements, anything that's notable in the work that you do. We also want you to answer why the US Leadership Accelerator. We want to know why you're applying for the US Leadership Accelerator Fellowship and identify 2 to 3 leadership skills that you're working to develop. And then the third question is on leadership growth. We want to hear about a time that helped you grow as a leader. We also have a video prompt. As you know, as I mentioned earlier, a huge portion of our fellowship is virtual through our Leadership Academy workshops. So we have a virtual video prompt to get to know you and meet you a bit better. It's a 60-second video, no need to do anything fancy. We don't need special effects. We don't need props or backgrounds. It's just you talking to the camera. You can even record it on your cell phone or your computer and upload it that way. And we want you to answer, what's the most pressing issue in the US global public health space today, and how does it influence your work or aspirations? So that's a bit about the application. And with that, I want to introduce Wanji Banda again, who is one of our Cohort 1 alums and has gratefully, I'm very grateful, joined us today to share about her experience with the fellowship. Wanji brings 6 years of experience in healthcare management and public health. She's been dedicated to amplifying underrepresented voices and creating strategies that drive equitable health outcomes. And as a Global Health Corps alumni from Cohort 1, Wanji leverages her platform to empower communities through various leadership roles. And just to name a few, she's a co-chair for Baylor University's inaugural mentorship program at the Dallas Fort Worth Chapter Chair for Sisters in Public Health, for which she was recently awarded Chapter of the Year and Community Service Event of the Year. She's also an ambassador for the American Cancer Society's Black Voices Research Study. So thank you, Wanji, for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I just wanted to ask you a couple experiences about your fellowship experience. Could you tell me a little bit more about the resources or support systems that are in place for fellows? I imagine people are curious to hear about that.
Yes, and honestly, there are so many resources which were vital to my growth within the fellowship and even outside the fellowship. The first one I would like to highlight is during this fellowship, we had an executive coach who we did the 360 leadership coaching with, and it was just amazing. It's honestly like having a mentor during the fellowship. And we set goals, we set personal and professional goals. And to be honest, most of my success this year, I really attributed to the fellowship and to my executive coach because she was amazing. I mean, when you do that leadership circle profile and realize how we perceive ourselves is very different from how others perceive ourselves, and you get to see those weaknesses and strengths, and working through all of those was just amazing. Also highlighting the GHC staff. I mean, Hima is on the call with us, but she was just amazing throughout the fellowship. I mean, she's so knowledgeable. We have Bailey, we have Hannah, we have John. Honestly, everybody that worked with us during the fellowship was just amazing. Like their experience is really commendable, and just what they bring to the table and how much they pour into you. And then Hima did highlight the pods. So once you're accepted into the fellowship, you're divided into groups, and we call those pods. My pod was the Global Health Foodies. That's what we named ourselves, and really just leaning on each other, because as public health professionals, we honestly experience similar issues, maybe in different settings, in different job titles, but we're all experiencing the same thing. And so being able to lead on really everyone in my cohort, but just the pod mates was amazing. And lastly, let me just highlight the resources, the workshops, the videos, everybody that attended our leadership seminar to really just talk to us. You have a lot of amazing resources to just help you succeed during this fellowship.
Oh, Wanji, thank you for the kind words. And I promise I didn't tell her what to say.
No.
Thanks, Wanji. Well,
You're
also,
welcome.
you kind of touched on a couple of these, but was there a specific project or component of the program that really stood out to you the most? You mentioned a
Yes.
lot.
Yes, I mentioned a lot. I know I was so excited because I want everybody on this call to just understand how much you can gain from this fellowship. But one that stands out will have to be leadership storytelling. And so as you go through the fellowship, there's so many different workshops, and reflecting on my fellowship journey, it's almost like each workshop was like a building block to the end. And so we got to do a leadership storytelling, and it stood out to me because it made me, after everything we learned, it made me question my why. What is my call to action? Why am I passionate about what I'm passionate about? And how do I relate that shared experience? And so I kept changing. We had to do a public health narrative where we're divided into groups and present that. And I kept going back and forth with figuring that out. But it's amazing because my public health narrative was about a community service event I had, which won the award. And so it really just stands out to me because you reflect on your leadership journey, and you reflect on why you're in the field you're in and why you're doing what you want to do, but also why you're bringing people to the table as well. So yeah, that was my favorite.
Yeah, the Marshall Gans public narrative series is one of my favorites. And Anji, I had no idea that the one that you spoke about is what got you the award. How funny, how beautiful.
Yes,
That's
yes.
exciting. Okay, we're gonna have to connect on that after.
Yeah.
So one last question for you.
Mhm.
How did this fellowship experience align with your personal values and goals, especially when you were applying?
It's wow. My fellowship experience was very personal to me because I had tracked, not really stalked, but tracked GHC for a couple of years before I applied, just seeing their amazing work. And I'm very intentional about growing my leadership skills. I'm very intentional about being in spaces that will grow me and challenge me. And the fellowship, and really just GHC in general, has an emphasis on fostering leadership. And so it aligned with my personal value, and really just my goals of growing as a leader. And as a public health professional, of course, you know, that value of equity and collaboration and empowerment, you see that throughout GHC. I mean, you see it through the workshops, through the events that you put on. And so it's strongly aligned with where I see myself in the future. And I knew this would be very critical for me to develop some of those leadership traits. So it was very personal to me.
Oh, Andre, we were excited to have you in our inaugural cohort, and we're excited to recruit for our third. We're
Yes.
actually going to turn it over to some Q&A, but Wanji will be here throughout. So if there's questions that you have for me, happy to answer. If there's questions for Wanji, I am sure she will be happy to answer as well. If we could get the Q&A slide. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Erin. Let's go for it. What questions do you all have? see any in the chat, and if anyone wants to unmute themselves and share, that's fine as well.
Yeah, and I would say too, if anybody's curious, you're free to ask too about like the time commitment and kind of like that work fellowship balance. And so definitely a great time to ask those questions.
Yeah, no question too small. And we're curious to also hear from folks that are interested in nominating applicants. If we're happy to share more on that experience, what that's like. If you nominate someone that's interested, we reach out to them personally, let them know they've been nominated. We find that nominations are a really great way to get awesome candidates because they're vetted by you. So if there's someone that you know that you think would be a great fit for this program, send them our way, please.
Hello, I'm Kristen, and I would love to hear a little bit more about the work fellowship balance and how was that throughout the year.
Yeah, great question. Wanji, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I would take it. I'm glad you asked. So I know on the slide it says 6 to 8 hours per month, but it honestly does not feel that way. And so we had, and Hima, you can correct me, we had monthly leadership workshops. And so that's already scheduled. The thing that's amazing is you receive a calendar that tells you all the dates of when the events will happen. And so you can always kind of plan around that. And then whenever we had to meet with our pod, all of that was scheduled. Sometimes we'd meet in the evening. Once we met over the weekend. And so it's really easy to manage. The main thing is talking to your supervisor and saying, hey, this is important to me. Can you please support me through this journey? But once you have that schedule, I'll say go ahead and plan around it. That way you're not overwhelmed with having the workshops and meeting with your pods, but it's very manageable.
Yeah, thanks, Wanji. And to add on to that, yeah, we have 3-hour virtual Leadership Academy workshops that are monthly. So that's that monthly during the workday commitment that I mentioned earlier and that Wanji's touching on. And then the pod groups have a curated agenda. It's not too much, I don't think. And it's a fun way for you to get to know your pod, but also continue to dive deeper into the content that we shared at our workshops. There is 2 in-person retreats. They are usually from a Thursday through a Sunday. So that does require some time away from the office. And for folks, we also strongly encourage them to be able to use professional development days or anything like that and not have to rely on PTO to attend. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I was curious about that.
No problem. Yeah, Kristen. I know sometimes it's a little intimidating to think about, can I manage this on top of my workload? And I will say we also have fellows and alumni who not only had full-time jobs, also were in school and also did our
Oh,
fellowship. I mean, I couldn't do that. I don't have the attention span for all that, but you know, it's very doable. And we try to make it very easy and clear cut for our fellows so that it's not something that feels overwhelming, hopefully.
Yeah, and to add to, this is where you lean on the GHC staff is kind of having that open communication with, I probably just missed one because I had like a state audit, but I emailed Hima and I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it. And she was able to accommodate me and still get me the materials. And so just having that open communication and being transparent about what's going on will also help.
Yeah, we recognize y'all have busy days, so it's helpful for us to stay in good touch. Hope that answered your question, Kristen.
it did answer my question.
Great.
Plan early.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone else? Any other questions? You can drop them in the chat or unmute yourself. Maybe while we wait for questions to come in, I can ask Wanji a couple more questions myself. Could you tell me about like a memorable moment from your fellowship year? Like what memory sticks out? I haven't asked you this before, so I'm curious.
Yeah. Um, and I'm being honest with everybody when I say there's so many, but for me, I would say it was being given the opportunity to be on a panel for our last retreat. I got to be on, so the last retreat, well, really both retreats, you have a welcome mixer. And the last one that we had, I got to sit on the panel with our amazing CEO, Miss Heather, the CEO of Greater San Antonio, Texas, and the CEO of Texas Biomedical Institute. And the amazing thing about it really was being given that opportunity. I think a lot of us, as we grow in our careers, sometimes you just need that platform, and I was able to find that within this fellowship. And so it stands out so much because number one, you trusted me to sit on that panel, but it also just promoted my confidence, my public speaking, my networking, being able to advocate for myself. Yeah, I'll stay with that for a very long time. So that's one of my favorite experiences.
That's a standout for me as well. I
Yeah.
mean, first of all, you were so articulate and held your own amongst so many, illustrious leaders, and I knew that going in. There was no doubt in my mind that you wouldn't do a great job. So I still
Thank
want to
you.
thank you for being there for us as well. Yeah,
Thank you.
we try
Thank
to give
you.
our fellows opportunities and platforms. So when we get offered opportunities, we bring our fellows and alumni in. When we have events, we make sure that fellows are represented because we know that they bring a lot of really great lived experience, work experience, and it's an opportunity for their voices to be heard and in platforms and spaces that they may not otherwise have access to. So
Yeah.
part of our fellowship program is to not only teach fellows how to use their voice, how to become better leaders and managers and navigate the challenges of working in the public health space, but to also create platforms for them to amplify their voices and be heard. Wow.
Great.
All right. I'm going to do a last call for questions. Anyone else? Righty. Well, I'm gonna put the main slide back up, the slide sharing. I think you can all see that. That has our information, so please feel free to email us. I'm going to drop the email as well in the chat. It's usfellowship@ghcore.org. Applications are going to be open next week, y'all, so please apply or nominate someone to apply. You can also use the QR code to get access to our nomination page.
I can tell from the photo in the slide, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's hard to pick pictures, honestly, because I spend a good amount of time looking back.
It is. It is. It's also a great opportunity to um, interact with people in different fields and get a different perspective. And so that also makes it fun because you're looking at things from a different lens. So yeah, there's definitely fun. There's a lot of learning, but there's a
Right.
lot of fun as well. Yeah.
Um, Sorry, I have a quick question. I don't know if you guys can answer it, but what do you guys look for in candidates? Like what ends up making one candidate ends up standing out from the other ones?
That's a great question. So we shared our application preview where there's a number of essay prompts and a video response. So we take a look at those. We look at you as a whole candidate. We don't you may have noticed, we don't have any education requirements or necessarily strict experience requirements. And that's because we know that working in public health takes people from all sorts of backgrounds. And we want to create an opportunity for people that are from all sorts of spaces to be with us and learn and grow. What makes an applicant stand out? Someone that's clearly passionate, someone that is excited to continue to work in the public health space, someone that is able to see some opportunities for growth for themselves. Someone who may say, I work at a great org and I don't have leadership development opportunities, but I want to keep growing. Or someone that says, there's this conference I want to go to and I don't think I'm quite ready for that yet. How do I get there? So someone that has that thirst and appetite to continually grow as a leader is something that we do look forward to in our candidates. And I think our successful candidates are people that are able to be, um, vulnerable. We create a lot of really great community building spaces, and part of our leadership development that sets us apart from other leadership development organizations is we try to build a lot of community. We create space for people to get to know each other and connect with one another. And yeah, being able to hold space and create that space in your timeline. We're not going to be a one and done fellowship where you join a session and then we don't really interact with you again. I hope that answered your question. And let me know if it didn't.
No, it did. It did. I also have another question. This one's
Okay.
like far in advance. Like, what is it like to be an alum of this fellowship?
Oh, Wanji, that's a question for you, I think.
Yes, so we have like Hima said, once a fellow, always a fellow. And so I'm still connected to members of my cohort. I'm also connected to cohort 2. There are a few that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, but we also have a GHC platform, an app where we get to connect and we get to connect with the Africa Fellows. So it's great kind of seeing that collaboration overseas. And we do have an alumni coordinator. And so I know we've had chapters. So one of the members in my cohort, he's actually in med school right now. But I know Shiv is a chapter. So most of the fellows, honestly, anywhere you go, they somebody in GHC. And so they always kind of connect. I know somebody from my cohort was in Dallas and she wanted to grab tea. So you kind of over to say you're still going to be connected in some way. You're still going to receive the emails with events going on. You have the opportunity to collaborate with somebody from the Africa Fellowship, and really just people within the program. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and we find that our in-person retreats are a really great way for people to kind of break out outside of that virtual box that we're often in a lot of our jobs these days, and get to meet people from all across the US, all working in public health, but all sorts of sectors. I mean, we've had fellows that are doulas. We have had fellows that are, going for their PhD while also holding down a job in local government. All sorts of different pursuits. And I think those perspectives are really valuable to bring together. And it's fun on my end to get to see you alumni now continue to connect. I mean, I know that cohort 1, 2 alumni now met up in person because one was going to be in town for a conference. And, I get to hear about this through the grapevine of all these great networking and connection that continues to exist. Does that answer your question, Thaliana?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. I have another question. I'm sorry.
You're
All
fine.
good. Ask
Yeah.
away.
What I know you mentioned that there's different like breakoff groups, and I was wondering like how's the culture amongst them? Like how does it vary from each? Like I don't know if you would know about like the other groups, but I was just wondering how the culture is within like each group.
That's a great question. So the pod groups are designed to be really an intimate space and for you to kind of get to know each other in a much smaller arena than you would in a big virtual leadership academy. It's about 5 to 6 people, usually regional, sometimes topic based as well. So it's people that are working in the same area as you usually, though, we're spread across the US, can't always work out that way. And we create a lot of space in the beginning of our fellowship year to do a lot of culture building, of getting folks to start getting out of their shells, get to know each other, get to be comfortable talking about their experiences. And we also do that in our pod groups. We have small, short agendas. Pod groups are usually 60 minutes or so. And towards the beginning of the year, a lot more of the focus is on getting to know each other and building that rapport before diving into a lot more of the deeper work that comes in the second half of the year with the presentations that are asked of you at the May retreat. And Wanji, I don't know if you want to speak to your experience, but I feel like each pod group had their own vibe and their own culture, and yet everybody got along. It was really great.
Yes, no, agreed. Each pod is different, but I'll say number one, like be yourself, be authentic. That's something that came across in all the pods. It was really interesting because the first in-person retreat we had, we just bonded. Like it was just different. Like everybody meeting each other for the first time. I mean, you already bond within your pod, but then bonding with the other members was crazy to see, but also fun. So I'll say within this fellowship, honestly, is just be your authentic self. And learn from other people, be open to that. So even though you're in different states, I mean, for us, we're in different states, it's being adaptable. Everybody has a different perspective. So are you going to be adaptable? Are you going to listen to somebody else's perspective? And that in itself would just promote like an authentic relationship. So it's pretty easy as long as you show up as yourself, really.
Wanji, I wonder if I could ask you, what was it like being in our virtual leadership academy workshops? I know that that can feel intimidating when you see on paper, you're like, oh my God, a 3-hour workshop. What's that going to be like?
um Engaging, that's the best way to put it. I think oftentimes, especially with work, you're in a virtual meeting and it's like you're just listening and listening, but we have breakout sessions. And so you get to interact with people the same way Hima is asking, do you have a question? Being open and asking those questions. And then you'll find that you may have a question and somebody else is thinking the same thing. And so that just creates open conversation. But in itself, honestly, it wasn't intimidating. I think 3 hours goes by, especially when you have speakers. They're so engaging, they have so much knowledge. And so for me, it was just sucking in that information. And it was fun. I saved all my material, so it's I can go back and look at that. But yeah, it just flies by.
Good. I'm glad you shared that. Thanks, Wanji. Yeah, we try to make them really interactive. So it's not just us lecturing. It's a space for you to dive deeper into content, connect with each other. Lots of parent shares, lots of small group breakouts. And it's also a way for us to get you all to meet each other. So you might be in a parent share with someone you hadn't met yet, especially if it was before our in-person retreat and they're not in your pod group. So it's really intentionally created to create space for you all to dive deeper, but also connect with one another. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, can I ask more of a question also in terms of like also eligibility pieces?
Yeah, sure.
So I know obviously it's for public health practitioners and based in the US, and I know you said about like we're having work. I think I saw like having worked in a job for the last 6 months. But I was just wondering because I know public health is so broad, so I was wondering in terms of like if your organization would consider themselves public health or not, like in terms of like that, or like if your background was public health, but like you work in, it's not specifically a public health job, but it's, within the sphere of global health or public health. And then also like if there's anything, like I know for some fellowships afterwards, like staying in that same job for a period of time after the fellowship, or if that's not part of it as well, since I know there's like the 6 months from beforehand. So kind of a two-parter question.
Yeah, great question. Okay, so to your first part, in terms of eligibility, we do ask that you work full-time in a US focused public health role. However, we're pretty broad in our definition of that, recognizing that public health as a field is quite broad. You got at that exactly right. So your org doesn't necessarily have to be a public health org. Often we find that our fellows are from public health orgs, but we also have had fellows, like we had a fellow last year and a fellow this year. They both work in public health law. So they work at the O'Neill Institute, where they are working in the public health space for sure, but the O'Neill Institute isn't necessarily a public health organization. So there are folks that do qualify who meet our requirements. We do ask that someone is not in a fully clinical capacity, and by that I mean someone that might be, like on the peds floor, or is providing vaccinations, or is doing non-public health related work that's more clinical. Ours is for more fellows that are not as clinically focused or medically focused. And if you have a specific situation, you're not sure if you're eligible or not, you can email us and we'll kind of work through your resume or your job title and get it to know whether it makes sense for you to apply or not.
Awesome, thanks. And then just one clarification, because I know you said US focused, meaning like the role is working within the public health system in the US versus like more global health, I guess.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
we do have some fellows that overlap both. So they'll have both a US and a global focus, but we are working with leaders that have a US focus as at least part, if not majority or all of their role. And then your second question about a requirement of staying in your role. So there is a requirement that fellows stay in the public health space throughout the duration of their year. We do encourage fellows to stay at their role. Often we find that you're able to actually get a lot more value out of your fellowship year if you're able to bring those skills back to your current job. But there are instances where there's an exciting opportunity that presents itself. And so we work through it case by case if there is a fellow that needs to leave their organization for whatever reason. However, we do strongly encourage fellows to stay in their role for the duration of the fellowship year.
Got it, thanks.
Mhm.
I have a question for Wanji. I wanted to ask, was there ever a time where you found it hard to like balance the fellowship and your work? If so, like how did you handle it? Also, is there an attendance policy for this fellowship?
I can answer the attendance policy and then I'll throw it over to Wanji. There is an attendance policy. So all Leadership Academy workshops that are virtual are required, as are the in-person retreats and attending the pod sessions. We do, accommodate if there is some sort of pressing need. For example, if you have an overlapping work commitment, we require supervisor sign off and advance notice if you need to miss anything.
Yeah, there was. There 100% was, because life happens, right? And so in the art of being transparent, so last year, and Hima knows this, and I'm open to sharing that, but last year I was in a car accident and I could not function at work, and it was hard for the fellowship. And so what that looked like was really just communicating, like communicating with Hima, communicating with my pod, and just saying, hey, I might miss this session. I just need some time. And that came after, like, I remember this one time I was at the chiropractor office and I was trying to join like Zoom with my pod. And so I was like at the office and trying to be on Zoom, and my pod was like, what are you doing? Like, we're in public health. No, ma'am, take care of yourself. This is not happening. And so people are pretty understanding. You just have to be open about it. And then again, there was another time where we had state audits. I couldn't be on the virtual session, was probably somewhat behind on my pre-work, like the worksheet for my pod. And so again, it was just communicating of, I won't be able to attend, or in my pod, hey guys, I didn't really get to do my worksheet. And they were able to basically just summarize what the worksheet was about. And I was still able to share my perspective on that. So yeah, life happens, and when it happens, right? And so you just have to be open about it, but people are pretty understanding. So yeah, long journey.
We understand it's a commitment, but we also try to have some, flexibility and understanding of our shared humanity on the back end of it. There are requirements. So, if you're flaking or we're not hearing from you, you're going to have a strong talking to from us, and we'll get to the bottom of it and understand really what's going on. But yeah, communication's key.
That's key. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I love the questions too. Thank you.
Any other questions? This is a quote from one of our 2017-2018 fellows. The fellowship changed my life. It made me a stronger leader, made me learn hard lessons about the world, its systems, and myself. It allowed me the opportunity to work alongside people from so many different cultures and backgrounds to make a difference in pursuit of health equity. Love that quote. Well, great. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here with us. Wanji, a big thank you from me and the GHC team for sharing your experiences with us. That's all. That's all we've got for you all. So we hope you apply. We hope you nominate someone that you think would be eligible. Tell your friends, tell folks that you've worked with. Please share widely. If there's a listserv or something that you want to post it in, please go ahead. We're looking forward to this new application cycle and meeting our third cohort. Thanks all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh wait, I just have a quick question. I wanted to ask, like, where, Hima, were you also part of this program as what were you also part of the fellowship as well?
Oh, I
Okay.
was not, I am not an alumni. I have been a fellow in other programs and initiatives in my life through other organizations, but I did not have the awesome opportunity to be a GHC fellow, unfortunately.
Okay. And my follow-up question was that is there up to I know that you that Wanji mentioned the pods, and I was like, is there ever a time where like the people who are participating in fellowship, like they can end up like becoming somebody who like leads like a pod eventually, or is
Yeah,
that
the pods are grouply led. So we encourage you all to either have a set leader, rotate leaders, or kind of just do it as a group and have it be a collaborative space. I think most folks ended up having it be just a collaborative space with no one set leader. I will also say, and Wanji, maybe you don't know this year our cohort has been meeting up in person. So many of our pod groups are doing their pod sessions in person. So that's been really fun. New Jersey and New York pod groups are popping off. Like they are meeting up. They did a dual pod group meetup.
Love that.
Not fun.
Yeah, yeah, that is so fun.
I see. I hope we can do that in Massachusetts because but thank you so
We
much.
do have quite a few fellows from the last 2 years in Massachusetts. So
Mhm.
please do
Okay.
apply.
Yes, I will. Thank you. That's all the questions I got. So thank you guys. I'll be heading out. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you. Thanks for
you.
joining. Alrighty.